is Mercury Control. The MA-6 launch countdown is T-minus 1 minute and counting. T-minus 1 minute and counting. All systems are reported in a go condition. John Glenn reports he is ready.
Those words by Colonel John Powers at Cape Canaveral on February 20th, 1962, set in motion one of the most spectacular news events of the 20th century, the orbital flight of John Glenn, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. This is how it happened.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Liftoff. The clock is operating. We're underway.
The MA-6 vehicle has lifted off. Trajectory looks good. The MA-6 vehicle is off the launch pad.
Altitude, 3,000 feet, speed better than 200 miles an hour. 25,000 feet, doing better than 700 miles an hour. Altitude, 75,000 feet, speed better than 2,500 miles an hour. The capsule was entering space. Altitude, 40 miles, traveling at 5,000 miles an hour. A few minutes later, Glenn was traveling at better than 17,000 miles an hour, his altitude 100 miles above the Earth. The orbital flight had begun.
Seco, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous. And I could see the booster during turnaround just a couple of hundred yards behind me. It was beautiful.
Roger, 7. You have a go. At least 7 orbits.
Over Bermuda, down the Atlantic Missile Range, over Africa and the Indian Ocean, and into the night side of the Earth. Glenn talked to fellow astronaut Gordon Cooper as his space dash carried him over Australia.
Roger, how you doing, Gordon? We're doing real fine up here. Everything is going very well. Over. Very good, John. You sound good. That was sure a short day. That was about the shortest day I've ever run into. Time passes rapidly, huh? Yes, sir. Okay, do you have any other landmark observation to make, over? I do have a light in sight on the ground. Just to my right, I can see a big pattern of light, apparently right on the coast. I can see a small line of the town and a very bright light just to the south of it. Roger, that is Perth and Rockingham, you're saying there. Roger, the lights show up very well. Now, thank you everybody for turning them on, will you? Roger, sure will, John.
Over the Pacific, into the sunrise and trouble. The capsule's attitude control system was not functioning properly. Glenn became the vital factor in the mission at this point.
I'm going on fly-by-wire so I can control more accurately. It just started as I got to Wymus and appears to be, it drifts off in yaw to the right at about 1 degree per second. It will go over to an attitude of about 20 degrees and hold at that, and when it hits about a 20-degree point, it then goes into orientation mode and comes back to zero, and it was cycling back and forth in that mode. Only really unusual thing so far beside ASCS trouble were the little particles, luminous particles around the capsule, just thousands of them, right at sunrise over the Pacific, over.
Oh, Roger, 7, we have all that. Looks like you're in good shape. Remain on fly-by-wire for the moment.
Roger, Friendship 7.
Glenn stayed on fly-by-wire for the remaining 2 orbits. At the end of the second orbit, Glenn got a good look at Cape Canaveral from outer space.
Roger, this Friendship 7 has the Cape in sight down there. It looks real fine from up here, as you know.
Yay, verily, Sonny. Good show. Next transmission, Bermuda.
Again over the Atlantic and Africa, and Glenn saw his third sunset. Nighttime over Australia, and the long ride over the vast Pacific and into another sunrise. As he approached the United States, plans to bring Friendship 7 out of orbit were set in motion.
This is Mercury Control. Our California station has made contact with the Friendship 7 spacecraft. The retro-rocket firing sequence was initiated in the spacecraft. Retro-firing attitude was assumed, and the 3 retro-rockets have fired. John Glenn's comment was it felt like he was going to send him clear back to Hawaii. The retro-rockets have fired. The re-entry process will be initiated shortly.
Near Corpus Christi, Texas, Glenn re-entered the atmosphere. He was still flying by wire. Radio contact was lost momentarily as Glenn went through the ionosphere. Then the words that his parachute had opened. Friendship 7 had made a safe landing in the Atlantic Ocean, not far from the destroyer Noah. Moments later,
the reports from the USS Noah indicate the Friendship 7 spacecraft was picked up clear of the water at 1 minute after 3 and finally set down on the deck at 4 minutes after 3 this afternoon. John Glenn reports, "My condition is excellent."
mission accomplished. In less than 5 hours, John Glenn had orbited the Earth 3 times. He had hurtled into 3 sunsets and 3 dawns. He had thrilled the world. But several days later, when he addressed the Congress in Washington, Glenn put his flight into historic perspective.
Friendship 7, though, is just a beginning, a successful experiment. It is another plateau in our step-by-step program of increasingly ambitious flights. The earlier flights of Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom, who are over here, were stepping stones.
Just stepping stones. Stepping stones to where? To infinity?